The day quantum breaks the internet probably won't go dark. That's what makes it dangerous. You'll still open websites, apps will still load, messages will still send, the lights won't flicker, the routers won't explode. But underneath all of that, something much worse could start to fail. Trust. The little invisible layer that tells your browser, yes, this site is really your bank. The layer that tells your laptop, yes, this software update really came from the company that made it. The layer that lets two systems meet each other online without instantly becoming roommates with a criminal. That's the part quantum threatens. So the title, How Quantum Could Break the Internet, is fair, as long as we don't turn our brains into mashed potatoes. Because quantum is not going to vaporize TCP/IP and send the web into the shadow realm. The smarter version is worse. Quantum could break the internet's trust layer. And once trust starts cracking, everything built on top of it gets weird fast. Secure websites, VPNs, certificates, software signatures, identity systems, parts of crypto. Maybe not all at once, definitely not in one dramatic movie trailer moment, but piece by piece, the locks around the internet start looking a lot less convincing. And here's the twist that makes this real instead of sci-fi goo. The boring institutions are already moving. This is not just theorists in cardigans mumbling about 2047. NIST has already finalized the first core post-quantum standards. Governments are publishing migration guidance. Standards bodies are working on hybrid web encryption, so the swap can start before the monster fully arrives. That means this episode is not about a prophecy. It's about a migration. A long, annoying, infrastructure-level cryptographic swap happening underneath normal life. And that's exactly the kind of thing that changes the world while most people are busy checking email. Chapter 1. The Internet doesn't die. Trust does. So let's clean up the frame. When people hear quantum breaks the internet, they often imagine passwords becoming meaningless overnight. That's sloppy. Your password is not the main victim here. The bigger target is the public key machinery wrapped around your password. Public key cryptography is the family of systems that help strangers do secure things over hostile networks. It powers key exchange. It powers digital signatures. It powers certificates. It powers a lot of the magic that makes the internet feel normal instead of like a lawless parking lot. And large enough fault-tolerant quantum computers are expected to threaten the public key systems we currently lean on most heavily, especially RSA and elliptic curve cryptography. That matters because passwords by themselves are not enough. A password gets checked inside a larger system of identity, key exchange, transport security, and authentication. So when someone says, quantum makes passwords irrelevant, the better answer is, not exactly. Quantum threatens the locks around them. This is where people need a clean mental model. There are 3 buckets. Bucket 1, public key cryptography. This is where the biggest pain lives. Bucket 2, symmetric cryptography, things like AES, and a lot of the encryption actually used once a session is established. That bucket is less vulnerable to known quantum attacks. Bucket 3, password storage and hashing. Still important, still absolutely matters, still not replaced by magical quantum vibes. NIST's own identity guidance still says passwords need to be salted and hashed with suitable password hashing schemes that resist offline attack. So no, this is not passwords are dead. It's more like the castle gate is in trouble. The doormat is still your responsibility. And now you can see why the migration is such a pain. You don't just swap one algorithm and call it a day. You have to find every place public key cryptography is hiding. In browsers, in servers, in PKI, in certificates, in code signing systems, in VPNs, in Shash, in old appliances, in forgotten internal tools built by someone named Greg in 2014, who has since transcended to a better job. That's why this is a systems story, not just a math story. The hard part is not inventing the next lock. The hard part is finding every door.
Chapter 2: The locks around your passwords.
Now for the most important threat model in this whole episode. Harvest now, decrypt later. This is the part that ruins the comfortable fantasy that we can just wait until the quantum computers show up and then deal with it. Nope. Because an attacker does not need a useful quantum computer today to create a useful problem for tomorrow. They can steal encrypted data now and save it. Then, if the right kind of quantum machine arrives later, they may be able to decrypt that data retroactively. That means some secrets are already on a timer. Medical records, government data, long-lived business secrets, sensitive legal material. Anything with a shelf life longer than your average hype cycle. That is why NIST's transition guidance says the threat is pressing, even before a cryptographically relevant quantum computer exists. And it's why they specifically point to protocols like TLS and IKE as priorities for migration. So when people say, why are we rebuilding crypto before the machine exists? The answer is, because the machine doesn't need to exist yet for the risk to exist now. This is also where digital signatures get spicy. Encryption is only half the story. The internet also runs on signatures. Signatures tell you that a software update is real, that a certificate was issued by someone trusted, that a package hasn't been tampered with, that a transaction or identity assertion was actually authorized. And if the signature layer gets compromised, the internet doesn't disappear. It becomes haunted. You start wondering whether the update is real, whether the package is poisoned, whether the certificate is fake, whether the message is really from who it claims to be from. That's not no internet. That's internet, but cursed. Bitcoin is the perfect example of how people mangle this discussion. Bitcoin is not some RSA collapses and then blockchain dies story. That's the wrong cartoon. The more precise issue is signatures and exposed public keys. Chaincode's report frames the main quantum risk to Bitcoin as a cryptographic one, especially for coins tied to exposed public keys, while also arguing the impact on mining is much more limited than the impact on signatures. That is a much more interesting story than the lazy version. Not quantum kills Bitcoin. More like quantum creates a specific signature problem that hits some funds and workflows harder than others. See the difference? Once you get specific, the nonsense starts starving.
Chapter 3: Harvest now, decrypt later.
So what does the migration actually look like? Mostly, it looks boring. And that is excellent news. NIST finalized the first 3 core standards: MLKEM for key establishment, MLDSA for signatures, and SLHDSA as a backup style signature option. That does not mean the world is done. It means the world finally has official tools to start replacing the old plumbing. CISA is now publishing product category guidance because this is no longer a lab thought experiment. It is a deployment problem. The UK's NCSC is even more blunt. They've laid out milestone years. By 2028, know where your vulnerable cryptography is and have a plan. By 2031, do your highest priority migration work. By 2035, complete migration for systems, services, and products. That is not the language of maybe someday. That is the language of please stop pretending this will sort itself out. And during the transition, one big strategy is hybrid cryptography. Instead of betting everything immediately on brand new post-quantum primitives, standards bodies are working on hybrid approaches that combine classical and post-quantum key exchange. The IETF draft for hybrid ECDHE-MLKEM in TLS 1.3 is exactly that kind of bridge. Translation: keep one foot in the old world while building the new one. If one side turns out to be weaker than hoped, the whole handshake is not naked in the street. That's also why the phrase crypto agility matters so much. Crypto agility means building systems that can swap algorithms without tearing the building down every time math gets rude. It sounds boring. It is actually civilization-grade engineering. Because the future will not reward the loudest quantum-proof marketing. It will reward the systems that can adapt without bleeding out. And that's also my warning label for viewers. Do not buy random quantum-proof nonsense from people who can't name the algorithms, can't explain the migration path, and act like one sticker fixes a planetary infrastructure problem. That's not security. That's cryptographic incense.
Chapter 4: The Quiet Crypto Swap.
So what should normal people actually take away from all this? First, quantum could break the internet's security assumptions, not the internet itself. That distinction matters, because if you frame it wrong, you end up either panicking stupidly or dismissing the whole thing as nerd theater. Second, the urgent problem is public key cryptography. Not all encryption, not all security, not the sudden death of passwords. The trust machinery built on signatures, certificates, and key exchange. Third, this migration is already underway, and most of it will probably reach you as boring software updates, vendor roadmaps, and infrastructure changes, rather than some dramatic quantum patch Tuesday. That is how big systems usually change. Quietly, under your feet, with a lot of suffering in enterprise procurement. For regular people, the advice is refreshingly non-magical. Keep software updated. Use strong, unique passwords. Use password managers. Use phishing-resistant authentication where you can. Don't click on every shiny thing labeled quantum safe like it fell from the heavens. For organizations, the advice is uglier. Inventory where public key crypto lives. Demand vendor timelines. Prioritize long-lived secrets. Build crypto agility before your future self starts screaming. And for the Bitcoin crowd, watch the signature story, not just the memes. The main update rule for everyone is this: do not watch for one apocalypse date. Watch for migration milestones. Watch what browsers adopt. Watch what CDNs and VPN vendors ship. Watch what NIST deprecates. Watch what standards bodies finalize. Watch what governments start requiring. Watch which temporary hybrid systems become normal. Because that's how the internet really changes. Not with one giant break. With a quiet rewrite of what trust means online. And that's why this topic matters so much. The day quantum fully matters, the internet may still look almost normal from the outside. That is exactly why you should care now. Signal over hype. Subscribe to join the expedition